What's up, Modern Lending Podcast listeners? Welcome back to another live episode of the Modern Lending Podcast. I'm your host, Alec Hansen. I'm here with Geoff Zimpfer. Jeff and I go way back. You guys don't even understand. We're going to tell stories that are blow your mind. I was mind blown because you just forget our past. Jeff's the amazing author of Disrupt or Die. He's also the podcast host of the Modern Marketing Radio. Mortgage Marketing Radio, which we'll get to because it has radio in it, which is going to throw people off. Jeff and I were loan officers back in the glory days. Down here in Southern California, in Orange County. Yep. And so you ever meet those kindred spirits who speak your same language? Literally, I've watched Jeff's podcast for years. This guy is somebody who every time he said something, I'm like, he's thinking the thoughts in my brain, which is rad. It's fun to see somebody who I start seeing the same world and recognizing, hey, this is somebody who I think sees the world the way I do. Maybe he's a little broken too.
For sure.
Which is awesome. So, and then you were in Orange County.
Yes.
So he was like, hey, let's hang out.
Old stomping grounds.
This is rad.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on today, dude.
My pleasure. I'm really honored to be here because you're crushing it here in this space. You've been leading from the front for all us people who do this, loan officers as well. So I just, happen to be here coming through town.
Yeah.
Live in Vegas now, moved there 4 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm coming through town. I had to hit Alec up and say, man, you want to grab a recording or something? And here we are.
Well, dude, so for those of you that are just tuning in or listening or haven't listened to any other episodes, which I don't blame you, this has been a series on stories.
Yeah.
And I really, I come from a family of storytellers, and I think stories, they were how all of human knowledge was passed down with stories. That's how we learned. That's how we adapted.
Right.
And I feel like they can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the loan officers out there, I can't wait to tell some stories with you from podcasting to origination days. But let's start with this. This is always an interesting one. How did you fall into mortgage lending?
Wow, great question.
Because we know only crazy people can survive.
I know, right?
Lending.
Yeah, I woke up and said I want to be a lender.
That's right. I was like, here we go. My dream as a child is to originate loans.
I love numbers. Hey, some people do. I know that's not you and me though.
No.
So I had a friend who was working for a subprime small brokerage shop down in San Juan Cap. You know where that is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was in transition or something and looking for, an opportunity to make some money. And so he's like, hey, why don't you come over here? And this is before you need a license and all that kind of stuff. This is 20 years ago.
Yeah. Millennials don't understand.
2003, I believe it was. And so I went over there and, took the job, and I'm working internet leads, cold calling internet leads.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Subprime lender, cold calling internet leads. And I realized after about, 60 days into that run, I was like, I don't think this is really what I had in mind, what I want to do. And at the same time, I always love to tell this story. I was reading the magazine. Remember Mortgage Originator magazine?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was like the place me and you probably would go to be inspired.
Yeah, it became Scotsman's Guide. So everyone knows Scotsman's Guide, but it was a Mortgage Originator magazine from the glory days.
Yeah. And they would always feature these top producers. And I remember this literally, I went to my friend and I'm showing him these articles of people that are doing 50 million, 100 million.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, look at these people are doing like 50 million, one guy. And he goes, that's not one guy. That's a brokerage.
It's a whole shop.
Yeah. He goes, that's they just, build up their numbers to make it look like that. He goes, there's no way one person can do that much volume. I'm like, what? So I was calling BS. And then I, just went upon this journey to be like, okay, I don't believe him. Number one. Number two, I want to have a career. I don't want to be the phone jockey guy, you know what I mean? Calling internet leads and stuff. So I was like, no, I want to find the truth. And I did. And so then I, long and short, found my way to Countrywide, man, was the next
gig from there. It's so funny to hear that story because at 23 years old, I fell into the mortgage industry and I sat as a receptionist for Kevin Buddy, who we both know.
Yep.
So you were pounding the phones,
and
I was sitting in front of this guy who said, go out and talk to 8 realtors a day or don't come back.
Right.
But that's amazing. So how did you get out of the call center?
I just started interviewing, which is funny. Now, I haven't thought of that actually in forever. A lot of people said no,
Really?
They're like, you have little to no experience. You've been working at a call. Shocking, right? They're like, no.
A company not hiring loan officer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Versus like, get in here and here's some money.
I forget how I got there, but I did get an interview. And this was before the office we were talking about earlier. There was an office in Tustin. I can't remember. Oh, I do remember the name vaguely right now. But anyway, they gave me a flyer. They're like, all right, hot shot, we'll give you a chance because you're so persistent.
Flyer.
Yeah. I think I might have done some aggressive marketing to get his attention or something. But here's the other moment I do clearly remember was I was given my business cards, put them on my desk. All right, go get yourself some realtors.
You're a loan officer.
Yep. Here you go.
Congratulations.
And I'm like, that's it. And that began the wonderful journey, man.
So do you remember a time in that origination days where you felt like you broke through? Because, and maybe frame it this way, often I'll tell people, so I'm curious for your take too. If you're brand new and you're the stack of cards kid, it's 6 months to a year.
Yeah. Right.
Of just eating, rice.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah. Like it's gonna be that.
Yes.
So how long did it take you till you felt, hey, I have some secure relationships now. I've broken through?
For sure. It was a year.
100%. Yeah. All in.
My first year was a suck, man. It was bad. I took a HELOC out on the house. Right.
Oh, you're going deep.
I had no choice. Wife wasn't working. We just had our first baby.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, damn, we got a mortgage. I mean, I had everything, right? I'm like, let's go all in. Let's go. And so that was the only way I could survive is, that thank God to that HELOC. And that bought me time to ride out that first year. And then something did click for me. Me personally, how I decided to build my business was through classes, lunch and learns and stuff like that.
I love that. That's awesome.
Because I was doing the same thing you were doing as I heard your story, which was I was doing the broker previews. Yeah. I was cold calling.
Kissing babies.
And I always like to say, does all that work? Yeah, it works, but it doesn't work systematically. You know what I mean? You got to sweat it out. So I don't know what happened. I don't know, you and I didn't talk about this, but prior to that, I was actually years ago, I worked for Tony Robbins. It was a seminar guy for him.
Yeah.
So I traveled around the country and I did seminars, live in a city for 6-8 weeks at a time and walk into all these offices with 5-6 other people. And we went to the car dealerships, the real estate offices, the mortgage offices.
Yeah.
And when I got off the road, I was like, what am I going to transition into? And so for me, it was mortgage. And then all of a sudden something happened. I was like, why am I busting my ass cold calling and door knocking? I'm like, why don't I get 10 realtors in a room and just teach them something that they would find valuable?
So what was the first class?
I don't remember. It was probably marketing related for sure. But it's something that I still do to this day. Yes. And it's something that, as you know, a lot of LOs do, and it works.
Yes.
So yeah.
I like that angle. Bring them to you. Stop going to them.
Right. Yeah.
So did you have a core class that you taught that you remember that was just like, this was my bread and butter?
Well, as you know, this was before the internet, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So hold on for everyone out there that's getting all judgy. Okay. We had Nokia phones.
Yeah.
And we had a Thomas Guide and MapQuest printouts.
Thomas Guide, baby.
That's what we had.
Yeah.
So I know you got the internet and the world in your hand. This was like, there's no way to get a hold of anybody.
Nope.
Pagers had just died, but yeah. So
some people right now are like, what's a pager?
Oh God. Buckle up, children.
No, you're right. Those were the glory days when you had no choice but to physically get in front of somebody.
Yeah.
Other than the phone.
So you would go to their offices then?
Oh man,
and just invite people to.
Yeah, I would go. I'd do flyer drops. I teamed up with Title Escrow Home Warranty a lot. Right?
Get a team.
Still works today.
Weird.
All right. People exist, don't they? There's people out there. If you just find them, they'll be willing to help you. So yeah, it was block and tackle. It was a lot of just, get out there. I love the saying from the military, embrace the suck, because I think that's what it is for a period of time. And then what happens is you start to, I know you talk about this, is you start to build a brand.
Yeah.
You start to become known as, not the average LO in town who's always pitching rate. And remember faxing rate sheets? You go to these offices and there's rate sheets all over the place. And I'm like, what is that game? Right. Yep. So to your point earlier, you said you bring them to you instead of you chase them. I did it all. Right. And then I was just like, you know what? I hold a class. There's 10 people and they get meetings with 3 or 4. And then you do another one. You get meetings for 3 or 4. And out of that, you get 2 or 3 who start to develop. And then a year later, you got 15, 20 realtors who you can count on 2-3 deals a month. From.
And then you've broken through.
Yeah.
Now it's referral business and expansion.
Yeah. And that was, like we said, before the internet.
Well, so let's go this direction for a second, because I love the fact that you're still holding on to the radio moniker in your podcast brand.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that I'm jealous about with guys like Geoff is, they saw things ahead of their time. Because like David Licken's been doing quote podcasting for 30 years.
Right. So
what caused you to go in that direction with your business, with your strategy? How did you, what was did you have an aha moment? Did you see, what did you see?
The truthful, honest answer was I started trying to do videos on YouTube in 2006.
Yes.
And it was hard.
God, I wish I would have done that.
I know, right?
I did it. I just should do the right kind of videos.
So it was hard. I had my camcorder.
Yeah.
And this was back when I was traveling and stuff. And I'd be in a hotel room just like this. I'd have the tripod set up.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to record my videos and my little snippets. And then I got to upload it and everything that goes with video. I'm like, this is hard.
Brutal.
Wow. And I'm like, what can I do that's actually easier than this? And I was like, shit, I could just record audio, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty easy. Turn on a microphone on your laptop thing, whatever, and boom, record an audio. And now I can actually get my message. So that is truthfully why I pivoted off of video to audio back then. And at the same time, when you're on a journey, like you and I, we sweat it out. We've had to figure it out the hard way. And I know, also interviewed a lot of successful LOs early on to find out what are you doing? I was on a similar journey. And I think a lot of people are too. I was at this place for whatever reason. Okay. So I went through 2008, all that kind of stuff. And I just was at this place of like, when it got really bad, tight at B of A, when it was just like, you couldn't breathe without asking for permission.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I want to originate, but I want to stay in this industry and do something.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the pivot back to like my real, I think, core and passion, which is training, educating, speaking, coaching, all that.
So that was the moment for you then. I was going to ask,
Yeah.
when did the transformation moment happen for you when you got into more coaching, leadership, mentoring?
I always wanted to have a platform.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I always saw myself as being an author one day, having my own show or whatever brand. And I saw that as the pivot because I could take this expertise or experience that I think I, developed and then take my natural, I think, innate abilities to find what really works by interviewing, talking to people, and just bring people solutions. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to bring people solutions. And for me, the podcast was the vehicle to do that. And so I got really curious, right? And I just started calling people up and I'm going, hey, would you be would you be open to an interview?
Well, so I want to talk about that. We got to unpack that because there are, I don't think, I think podcasting is an amazing vehicle for personal branding, for driving deeper relationships, for bringing on guests,
right?
For just as a social media strategy, because you can just continue to share moments that don't have to be from you,
right?
You can bring on smart people and let them just talk, and then they drop nuggets, and you're just like, yeah, well, I'm associated to this intelligence, So what was it like in the early days for you? Because I know there's somebody out there thinking, God, I should probably do something here. Were you just calling people? Yeah,
man. I was calling people, emailing people. And I let me tell you what, I got a lot of no's.
What'd they say? Why'd they say no, though? Just curious.
They just said no. That's it.
Like, you didn't get like, I don't understand why you're doing this.
Some people did say that. Yeah. Some people didn't.
Because you were early.
Yeah.
You were so early. I could see people being like, nah, that's weird.
It was January 5 years ago, whatever the math is on that. It'll be 6 years come 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, early on, there was a lot of no. A lot of people thought I was the scam. They didn't understand the angle. That's what it was.
That's awesome.
What's the angle?
You're like, just want to interview you, get some knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Isn't that so funny? Not today, right? You're like, oh, podcast. Yeah.
I kind of. I still think there's people out there that are like, I don't know. It's not for me.
What's your angle? Why do you want to have me on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people were like, how much does it cost? I'm like,
that's when you kind of made it a little bit. Like, you're like, yeah, that's right.
No, that was a while back. You get a lot of skeptics, you get a lot of people who, even still today, right, people don't get the whole digital media platform thing. Like, I don't see why that you would do that. Doesn't make sense. But it was hard early on, for sure. Had to take a lot of no's. And so I just got online, did a lot of research, started Googling people. But yeah, it's not like everybody said, yeah, let's do this. No, man. People still say no today.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a year to get somebody on the show.
Yeah.
You know how it is.
So 6 years of this, you still call it a radio, which I love.
That was like, I don't even know where that came from.
Just what name of your show? It's fine. It's
I thought it was like audio.
Yeah.
I'm thinking radio. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And I guess you're saying it was a smart move. All right.
Well, so what did you learn?
What have I learned?
Yeah. What stands out from all that 6 years of building this thing? From a business development perspective, personal growth, relationship building, what stands out?
I've learned that if you just, I don't know, I don't want to sound cheesy or cliche. I was going to say, if you just show up and add value, right? I mean, something like that, but that just sounds
sometimes somebody just needs to hear it again and again and again until they finally wake up to it, though. So it's okay to be a little bit cheesy if the language is right, in my opinion.
I guess, trust your gut,
I like that.
Like, what do you really want to do? Let me try and formulate this in a sentence. It's because, I think, what are you trying to build? Who are you trying to be? How are you trying to show up in the world?
Yeah.
Because those were the questions that were driving me. And that's all I wanted. Like, I didn't have a game of like how I'm going to monetize this, or this is going to be a moneymaker for me.
That's important. Okay, so that's really important, because you can tell immediately, because I feel like they're showing up with a lack of authenticity.
Yeah.
When their end game is some kind of manipulation, some kind of monetization, where it's like, oh, like, and I feel like their voice in the podcast gets lost, and I just can't.
You can hear an
can't
agenda.
Feel it with them anymore.
Right.
So I like that angle. I appreciate that angle.
Well, I mean, it's still the case, right? It's like I've never taken. Every once in a while, you get somebody calling, "Hey, you take ads or a sponsor or something?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." Even though it's been interesting. Usually, because so far, to be honest with you, it's been like hard money lenders, whatever. I'm like, nah, that's not what I'm going for.
I get it. It's not the brand you're looking for.
For me, it's just a place to show up and serve. And I know I think it sounds cheesy. I don't know.
Sure.
To a lot of people who think that's BS, but I don't. Now, you just recently met Gary Vee, and I'm sure. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thanks.
Amazing friggin' feather in the cap. But I'm sure the one thing you would know for certain being around Gary is he is no bullshit. He cussed
way more than you are. So
that's true. He did. Thank you. He is coming from here.
Yeah.
100%. You know what I mean? And that's like Wine Library TV and how he started all that kind of stuff. There was a little bit of the old like, this could probably turn into something for the liquor store.
Yeah.
But right, he showed up and just really wanted to like, and still today, his content, I think, is all about serving.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit of his key to success too. And I think that's part of the key to your success over the years, and staying consistent, but also staying true to what you wanted it to be.
Well, let me ask you, why did you start the podcast? Because this is going
Welcome
to both
our
our
Modern Lending Podcast.
This is going to both our audiences. Alec Hansen, Modern Lending Podcast. Let's go.
I think it was. I started my entire digital journey, and everyone that's heard me before is probably puking because they've heard this a million times.
Nope.
But in 2018, when the mortgage world was ending, the consolidation was happening.
Right.
Margin compression was gigantic. It was going to be this great, I call it the great consolidation, that I feel like, in the crisis created this fragmentation of the industry with all of these, I don't want to call them micro companies, but smaller mortgage companies that have gotten bigger over time.
Right.
That just became into existence because there was a void.
Right.
And everything was destroyed and absorbed by banks, and they don't mortgage lend well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I predict and continue to predict incorrectly that at some point there's going to be this consolidation where they just can't play at that level anymore. Because of the requirement for technology, the requirement for scale to maintain margin. So it's just a personal viewpoint. But I'm like, it's happening. 2018, I'm like, this is happening. And the other thing that I saw happening, which was a little bit terrifying to me, was, I'm a street kid in mortgage.
Yep.
I was door to door, belly to belly, driving with MapQuest printouts, trying to find the next open house, pissed off when there's a title rep there and not the realtor I wanted to see,
yes,
putting on my suit and tie on Saturdays and Sundays and going to open houses, trying to get appointments. And what I saw in 2018 was the death of that person, that salesperson, because the consumer was just changing. We were all changing so rapidly into this internet first society, cell phone driven, touchscreen, smartphone, and the multiple listing service was private.
Yeah.
In our glory days.
Right. Yes.
So as a consumer, you got to go to the hot sheets on a Saturday and open it. You couldn't see what was for sale. You didn't know shit.
You needed a realtor. Yeah.
No, you had to have a realtor. And since they controlled knowledge, they controlled a lot more influence than today when knowledge is more widespread. And so I was, thinking that my people were in trouble.
So you wanted to show up and serve too.
Well, so yes. And then I realized loan officers needed to show up. I was like, I woke up and literally I told the story with Gary on Gary's podcast, but I went for a run, grabbed a coffee. I'm listening to Gary's podcast and he says the same shit over and over again.
Right.
And it just must've been the moment I needed to hear it, where he was like, the brand is going to matter. It's going to matter. And I was like, you know what? This is so true for the loan officers that I serve, for the people that I lead, for our industry. And then I looked around and I was beating the drum. You got to get on social. You got to get on video. You got to get out there and be comfortable in this new medium where people are consuming content, podcasting. And then I looked around and I was doing none of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, what kind of a hypocrite am I if I'm telling someone to do something and I'm not willing to do it?
Right.
And so I dove into the space. I did 100 videos in 100 days as a test to figure this out, to stay committed to something. I'm going to do something. And, it lacked a ton of direction. It was very scattered. It was one topic and then randomness. But through that process, I started to learn a ton of different things and validate a lot of other things that I've been told by people that even listening to some of your early stuff, where I was like, okay, this is I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
This is happening.
Right.
And so that was the birth of the Modeling Podcast, because I figured if I'm going to tell people I think they need to look at podcasting as a potential medium for them, but I was never going to try it. Well, who am I? Yeah. And maybe my podcast at some point ends because it's not for me. Maybe my there's a great loan officer in Vegas who found his medium in YouTube.
Yep. Sean.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so he figured it out. So he doesn't podcast anymore. It wasn't his. It didn't
right.
fit his voice.
And he recently changed his content too.
Yeah.
From lifestyle to more financing related.
Well, and that's my point, is like, I feel like you got to be in the water to figure out where you're going to play.
Yeah, that's such a good point too, for anybody who gets hung up on like, where do I start? It's just, you just have to start. And, like you said, get in the water and start swimming and you'll figure out your path,
Yeah. So that was how this podcast started, and then I did, but maybe you did, but I called people that were safe, that I knew they couldn't say no. People that work at Loan Depot. I'm like, you can't say no.
Yeah.
You have to come on my show. But again, it was just putting reps in.
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to figure out, what do I want this to be? Yeah. What should it be?
Did you know though it was going to be as creative as it is? Like, you've got all your characters and stuff like that. Like, did you have a vision in your head of like, dude, I get to be crazy and silly. Let your real personality come through.
That I think that I had that became, I think that's part of the journey too.
Yeah.
I think at some point the layers start to slough off.
Yeah, you get more comfortable.
Yeah, where you're kind of like, you know what? I'm more comfortable in my skin now. I'm a little more comfortable in my skin now.
Because that's part of you, really.
Oh, huge!
All that the crazy stuff you do.
Oh, I'm the biggest dork,
which is funny as hell. By the way, I just have to say, it's not. First of all, I don't think everybody can do it. Like, I heard you say, like, if you're the engineer type guy who wants to run the analysis, all that, if you want to do that, cool, that's you. But if you're the personality guy who wants to put on a friggin' king's costume with a crown, then do that too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have a unique voice to give to a unique audience,
right?
That is going to be attracted to that.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm not living that authentically in my own voice, then how dare I tell somebody else to do something?
And have you been able to convert anybody?
Yeah, well, in their own ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, because you brought up the hybrid loan officer earlier, which digital local type of a thing.
Right.
I totally agree with it. I believe that a lot of loan officers in our industry are waking up, and I wouldn't attribute it to Alec Hansen did it. Yeah, I think that maybe I'm part of the narrative. I think maybe I'm part of maybe their experience somewhere. That'd be awesome. But I think that people are starting to figure out there is this thing happening. There's $1 billion in marketing being spent on TVs and the internet to tell the consumer that the local mortgage professional is irrelevant. And so, I mean, it's real. You just watch the commercials and you're like, well, that's insulting.
Yeah.
And so I think people are starting to figure it out now. They're messing up and they're doing it wrongly, and then they're trying to pivot, hopefully. But I love that. Do it wrong all day long.
Right.
So when was your first insight into this hybrid that you called it, this digital local?
My answer to that, I'm always going to be 100% honest, is the way I'll answer that or frame that is I never believed it was going 100% digital. I think there will be those options for people who want that, but that's not everybody. Yeah. Because I think where I started to get agitated was when I started seeing people create these comparisons of like using Uber and the taxi industry and the disruption there, you know what I mean? And then they parallel that over to real estate or whatever. And I'm like, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, and you probably have heard this comparison where it's just like disrupting a $20 taxi ride is not the same as disrupting a $500,000 purchase. Yeah. People aren't going to make this and want to go just this. Yeah, and the data proves it,
So what's this about?
The book? Oh, that's about.
And why'd you do this?
What is that about?
Why'd you do this? Why did you write a book?
Okay, so that
Because you're audio guy, and now you're into written word
well,
guy.
look, I'm not completely, thick in the skull. I do understand the value of having a book for credibility.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
For sure. So that is put it this way: it's two-pronged approach. One is if you're building a platform, building a brand, you need to have some assets, right? A way for people to engage with you. And let's just face it, having a book is instant credibility. We all know that. So I'm like, okay, I understand the game I'm playing. I've got to have some credibility. But also it was a way for what I wanted to tell the story there was back to what I just said, which was surviving and thriving in the digital real estate shift is not just about, hyperbole about digital and go all in on digital and you got to be on video and all these things people just throw out there randomly. I'm like, there's more to it than that, and it isn't just that. It is, this term, the hybrid loan officer, which is the new book.
Nice. Nice.
Put myself out there right now.
Yeah, just declare it.
Yeah, there it is, baby. So I really, for me, again, I wanted to tell the truth. So in there is like interviews I did with agents, loan officers about how they're succeeding both with digital and still the quote old school relationship referral, past client stuff. It's a blend of both. And to be honest, I just got tired of like it being like all digital.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to people who are succeeding who aren't all digital, right? They're succeeding with the relationship side of things. And so that was kind of the motivation.
Dude, I love that. I've always been said they're not mutually exclusive.
Right, exactly.
We talk about social media and I'm like, this is additive. This is not replacing your relationships. Right. This is not throwing away. And everyone hears, me say that analogy of realtors losing influence. And what I mean by that is the customer is taking more and more control of the process. But by no means does that make a realtor irrelevant.
No.
I still see tons of realtors with massive amounts of control on a transaction.
Oh yeah.
And then I see some that have no control, and a customer does walk in with a quick and pre-approval, and they just accept it and move on.
Well, I spent a lot of time kind of doing research in the field. I follow a lot of people who then I like grab their info and make me look really smart. But I usually credit them where possible.
You use that trick too, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Shoulders of giants. Shoulders of giants. I just gotta stand on your shoulder. I'll give you credit.
But I think the future of the industry is simply more fragmented. That's it. Are realtors going away? No. Are consumers going to have more options for how they acquire that piece of? Yes. I mean, one of the new models I'm seeing is the referral fee model, like we just saw with Zillow.
Dude, it's real. Yeah.
So the iBuyer thing for Zillow, dead, gone, right? We don't know what's going to happen yet with Open Door, or OfferPad, but we're seeing that that's a difficult model to sustain.
Yep.
But what I think is the next version of the model is with this model they call the power buyers.
Yeah.
You've heard of these, right? These people like Orchard and what's the other? I can't remember the other one right now, but Landis. There's a few. There are always some sprucing up. They got tons of money. And what they're doing is say, let me get to the buyer first. And I'm going to find the property that you want to buy. And oh, by the way, like you don't even have to move out of your current house or we'll, all kinds of options they're going to do.
Bridge them, all that
stuff.
Bridge
them. Exactly. To get to the buyer first. And so I saw the stat that Tom Ferry put up the other day in one of his events, and that he sees the future of the market is small sliver FSBO, roughly 50% agents, the other 50%. All those transactions will have a referral fee component to it, whether it be from a big company or something else,
Yep. What a evolution to the process.
Yeah.
So going back to your comment about digital, local, what do you think a loan officer needs to do today to be relevant?
Yeah, great question. I think they really, first of all, need to show up and create a place where they can engage, create an audience. I was at this conference a few weeks back, and I designed this whole presentation, which was called "Defeat the Disruptors," because that's what they asked for. And it was all around how do you, as a mortgage originator, stay relevant. And a lot of it is like kind of what we talk about, which is, who can you serve? Don't be everybody, be for somebody.
Yep.
Who are you choosing to serve, and what problems will you solve? And then where are you going to show up online, right? Where's going to be your destination? Is it going to be Instagram? Is it going to be LinkedIn? Whatever. You've got to show up someplace and build an audience. And you also have to build that audience offline because you don't own any of that.
Yep.
You know, Facebook was down for 8 hours a few months ago.
I loved it. The world panicked immediately. TikTok was blowing up because no one had anywhere to go.
What do we do?
I want to go here.
What do we do now? I don't know. Do we go for a walk or go to the park or we're zombies? So I think, to get back to your question is show up, build your own audience, right? Build your personal brand, as you said, be known for something to someone in particular. And then just do an amazing job for people. Like how during your sales process, how many moments of that like surprise and delight are there?
Very little.
Yeah.
It's very transactional.
Yeah.
I'll call you when the appraisal's in. You call them when the appraisal's in.
Right.
You didn't. Okay.
How are you differentiating against the big box lenders? For example,
Yeah.
That's why they're going to choose you. That's why I think a lot of the smart lenders are leaning on financing. As far as how do I lead with education on financing is how to use real estate to build wealth. Is this the right mortgage for you? Right. The total cost analysis type stuff.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
All that kind of jazz.
Let me go this direction for a minute. One of my questions that I've asked this whole season was share a transformative experience that you've had in your life. Now, before you go out, because there's probably many, because most humans have a lot. They're the coach that said something, whatever. But here's the vein I want you to try to layer it in on. My audience, loan officers, in-market professionals. So I want this story to be as relevant or helpful to those people as possible. But you've had a ton of life experiences thrown at you.
Wow, damn, these are like hard questions.
Hard hitting questions. I mean,
can I get a drink?
It's right there. That's vodka. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it could be as simple as the glory days of origination, and that the meeting that changed your life that is still as relevant today as it was that time it happened. It could be the experiences you've had going digital and getting onto podcasting and where that's taken your career and helped build a platform and set you on a direction that was where you really wanted to go. And you've done a ton of stuff.
There's like 3 or 4 things floating through my head, and then thinking in the context of your audience. And I'm trying to choose which one is the most relevant because I'm thinking of 2. So let me start with this one. You know how maybe you found this to be true, and I don't know what the mix of your audience is. Is it new versus seasoned or a blend?
I get some both.
Get some both. I don't know about you, but like when I was first out there calling on realtors, I was nervous. I was.
I feel you on that one.
Yeah. Were you kind of intimidated?
Oh, I drove away. I tell the story all the time. I finally pull up to the #1 producer in Orange County, in Newport Beach.
Yeah.
And I look in the house and he's there.
You drive
first time, 23 years old. First time I ever met this person. And I put on jock jams and I'm trying to get fired up,
pumped up,
trying to get like slapping my face. And then I just put it in drive and just take off. I couldn't do it. Couldn't even go in, Geoff. I couldn't even go in and say hi.
Right.
I didn't have to bring a flyer. I didn't have to sell anything. I just had to go say like, I'm Alec.
Hi, here's my card.
Not even give a card.
Right.
Oh my God, I couldn't do it.
Really?
So talk about fear and nervousness, man. I feel you 100%.
All right, well, let me flip it around because this is our show. We're mutually interviewing each other. So you went back, or how did you get over that fear and intimidation?
I knew on the other side of that was the opportunity. I knew it in my soul. And I think like you don't know that, you can never face down your fears. And I was very insecure growing up. I was bullied. I had, I still have the chirping of the fear of rejection and the insecurity. I mean, it's all still in the reptilian brain. I deal with it all the time still. Now I'm older and I have more things to help me manage it. But I knew on the other side of this was the opportunity that is transformative, and I'm competitive and I don't like to lose. So I feel like I had a unique engine that helped me face it, but everyone's got to face it with whatever the tools they got. And so the way I did it was I tried to hack the game. I didn't sell anything. Because if I'm not selling anything, if I never ask you for a meeting, you can't tell me no.
Right.
It's really easy. Now, I knew somewhere that I'd have to have a meeting at some point. I'd have to come to the rejection line at some point.
Right.
But I was like, well, that'll be later. And, I lived very simply. I had a 1-bedroom single apartment, I drove a Honda Civic, my dad, God bless him, he paid it off for me when I graduated college as my gift. So I had very little expense.
Wow.
And so I I just went in and introduced myself.
That's it.
I didn't bring a card.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't bring a flyer.
Mm-hmm.
I learned real quickly, by the way, that I had to introduce myself as a lender because I went in on a weekend, introduced myself, and the guy thought I was a buyer. I spent an hour touring around the house, never could talk to that realtor again. Never.
Love it.
Just could never talk to him again. So I realized that I just had to say hi. And my name's Alec.
Wow.
And how's the market? And I hate small talk because I don't do well with that either. But I just had to figure out what to do. And then, I train this now to a lot of people who face the same demons because over time, what happens simplistically is, the fifth meeting, the sixth meeting, it's instead of saying, hi, I'm Alec, they go, hi, Alec, when you walk in the door.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you would go back over and over again.
Oh my God. I had the top 100 agents in my ACT database where I'd print labels myself and stick them myself.
Folks, this is the 1990s.
Yeah. And I so anytime there was a broker preview or an open house for those top agents, I was there.
Really? Yeah.
Every time. I would walk in every
similar
time.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And walk in every time. And so by the 7th, 8th, 10th time, 15th time, they knew my name. I want to say I wasn't a threat to them because I didn't sell them anything. I never pressured them for a meeting, asked them what lender they use. So I became a respected person. At least they knew I was hustling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it was right there. They knew you were hustling. And the fact that you weren't pitching either because they didn't like that pitch. You just said something like they weren't hustling. I don't know if you remember Michael Clifford Group here in SoCal, Mission Viejo, right? So Michael DeVar. They knew you were hustling. I became his in-house lender simply because I just did everything you said. And I showed up and I never pitched. And then he was interviewing in-house lenders and he goes, I know who you are. You're at all my broker previews and broker opens. And I won the deal.
Yep.
So
yeah. So I'll tell you one of my transformative moments in that time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best agents in Orange County. He works on Balboa Island. His name's Don Abrams. I don't know if you recognize that.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Still in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was an ex litigating attorney turned real estate broker owner and did his own deals, running his own little shop. Okay. And he kills it on Balboa Island. He does all the business down there. A huge market share leader. And so I go Thursday to a broker preview in Newport. Friday, he had a listing in Costa Mesa, which was another city for broker preview. I go to that one. Saturday, I go to an open house. Sunday, I go to another one of those open houses. He's at every one.
Wow.
So I hit this guy 4 days in a row and hopefully not the same suit. I don't even remember. Probably I only had like 2 suits. And one time he made fun of me for wearing a suit to Balboa Island because he said, no one down here has a suit on. This is shorts. And he's like, what are you doing? And I go, that's all I got, dude.
Right.
Have you seen me? I'm 23. And so I remember the 4th time I walk in on Sunday, he looks me in he goes, Alec. And I go, Don, nice to see you. And he stops me and he goes, are you going to come to every single one of my broker previews and open houses? And I was like, oh no, this is it. This is my moment. I hate this moment. This is what I've been trying to avoid. And he's forced the moment where I have to tell him, I'm hunting him.
Right. And
so I tell him yes, somehow. I'm sure my voice cracked. And then he gave me the biggest grace and a defining moment for my career. And he laughed and he said, it took my last loan officer 2 years to earn my business. Keep showing up. Wow. It's great to see you. Interesting. And one of the things that I teach and coach to and just share with people is you never know what's going on under the surface for these big agents.
Right. Yeah.
Their loan officer could be a piece of crap.
Right.
And has been acting entitled and not calling them back promptly and not being available because you don't know, but they don't tell you that.
No.
And so 6 months later, he called me on a weekend, sitting with a customer. I needed a pre-qual letter because he didn't tell me this time, but he wasn't able to get a hold of his long-term partner.
Sure. Right.
And he was losing his mind. And then he gave me that first deal, and I closed $30 million a year with him for the next 5 years. Just. So they just talk about.
It's funny. A similar transformational moment. I'm glad you went there. I'm sure everybody watching is glad too, because they can learn a lot from that. The similar thing I was going to say was, this was actually just happened to me last week. I met with one of the top real estate agents in Las Vegas. She's top 100 or higher than that. Year to date, she's sold 160 homes.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah, she's working.
Yeah, she's working. And she's just so well known, and the brand, all this kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of the intimidation and everything.
Hell yeah.
And she walks in, she pulls up in her red Panamera, right?
Perfect.
Right. She comes in, she's got leather pants, leather knee-high boots, leather earrings down to her shoulder.
I can't even deal with it. I know.
Like the whole, what you would usually expect, right?
Yes.
Dude, nicest person in the world. Nicest person in the world. It was totally gracious and arms open. We hugged at the end.
Rad.
You know what I mean? And I'm just my point is, a transformative story is, like, we get so worked up and intimidated about, oh my God, this big agent.
Yeah, absolutely we do. And we tell, make bad assumptions.
Here's so the moral of the story is, like, don't prejudge, right? And most of the agents I've found at that level, I know there's some egos.
Sure. Yeah, there's some asterisks.
Yeah, there you go. But like you said, they're also struggling with how do they continue to grow their business.
They're trying to figure it out too.
They're sometimes the most open-minded people there are.
Yeah.
You know, so if you can bring them something and this is what, you and I always showed up with, is like, now today it's like you can send them a series of videos of like, let me help you, like, get more consumers on Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me ask you this as we wind down here. Thanks for your time today. It's been super fun.
Thank you, man. But let's not blow out of here without talking about your book.
Okay.
So people are going to see and hear this. Bypassed. I love the hashtag bypassed. Swipe, right? So tell me about this. A modern guide for local mortgage pros left behind by the digital customer. So tell me about this. Why'd you write this?
Similar to your view, to your answer. I felt like I had a lot that I wanted to get out. I felt like I had a lot. Yeah, a lot too much sometimes. I felt like I had this information that I needed to share.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to figure out how to do that. And, I developed the internal training platform for Loan Depot. I started to kind of condense the thoughts into more of a process.
Yeah.
And so, that was what born this. And I donate 100% of the profits to Freedom Alliance to support our veterans, because for everyone that's been in the mortgage industry and that's had levels of success, it's been good to us.
Right.
And so this is almost like I don't need the proceeds from this. I want people to thrive in our space. I don't want in-market professionals who I love and are wonderful caregivers of the home buyer to be bypassed, to be discredited.
Yep.
Their consultative wisdom matters. Their experience levels matter.
Yep.
You're taking on one of the largest debts of your life. We know what happens when you do bad loans. We watch the world go down.
Yes.
So we know how important this moment is, this consultative experience is. And so I was like, hey, I got to get this into this format. And that was what really drove me to put this into paper.
That's cool. So it was a passion project.
Yeah. And the same stuff too. I feel like if you got something to say, you should say it. And if it's worth it, people will buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it, man. Congrats. I'm sure it wasn't easy. I know writing a book isn't easy.
No, the hardest part, and this is hysterical, was I'm an audiobook guy, huge audiobook guy. And so I wanted to have an audiobook version of this.
Right.
And I decided that I would read it myself, because Mark Randolph, who was the first CEO of Netflix, narrated his own book called That Will Never Work, which is incredible. And I love listening to it because I got to listen to the guy tell his story.
Right.
And nothing makes you feel dumber than trying to read your own book. Mikey was in the studio with me. How long it took us? Months. Because I'd read a page, I couldn't do it. I get stuck on a paragraph or a sentence, and like I'm out. I quit. We're gonna start it tomorrow. Like, I just lose your mind.
Did you get it done?
It's done.
Well,
it's on
you're
Audible.
Better than me. I haven't even done it.
It's brutal, dude. It was just hours in the studio with the mic and a headset, and you have to read at a slower pace, and you just want to kill yourself.
Right. Because you're like, I should change this. It could sound better.
Oh, that's the worst part. Is when you realize that one of the sentences is dumb, and you're like, that's awesome. I got to read it like that now.
I definitely want to get the book and read it. So, and we're going to make sure that when my audience is listening to this, we're going to put links. Make sure you get me one.
Thank
links to where the book is and all your shows and all that.
All right. Final question for the group.
Sir.
I love this question.
Okay.
If you were sitting down in front of a brand new originator and a 30-year veteran, and you got a few minutes with them to give them advice, what are you going to share to those two people?
Oh, geez, man. Seriously?
Yeah.
Like
I know.
Should have like.
You got to brand new originator, 30-year vet.
And what advice would I give each of them?
Yeah, or communally.
Other than for the brand new person to shadow the 30-year vet for the next
I
6
love
months.
it, dude. Absolutely. Spit the truth, man.
That's the first step, right? Shadow this person and see what they do.
I love that.
That's working for them. Okay, so I would say this is be adaptable. Be adaptable because it's for certain that things are going to change, and what you're doing today and how you're getting clients today may or may not work 5 years from now. So I think the survival to success is not the fittest. It is the most adaptable to change to fit your current environment. And that's it. So just eyes wide open.
Dig that, dude.
Yeah.
Totally on point.
That's it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Pleasure
Mikey,
to be here.
Take us out, my dude. But this was fun. I appreciate you. We'll see you guys next time on the next episode of the Modeling Podcast.